Hi, Frank.
Hey, Robin, how are you?
I'm well. Do you have the slide deck on your screen to share it?
Yes, I do.
Okay. All right. I just didn't know if you wanted me to do that or if you were going to manage it yourself.
Yeah, I can do it.
Okay, great. And then
Thank you.
I'll just do the introduction portion.
Okay.
Perfect. And I'm just going to turn off everything until everyone joins.
Okay, perfect.
Thanks.
Mhm. How are you, Ms. Thompson?
I'm doing well, Mr. Vicente. How are you doing?
Doing well, thank you.
Good, good. Hey, Miss Desmond.
Hi, Ms. Thompson. We had all of our things off just because we were waiting for everyone to come in. How
Yeah,
are you?
we just finished up, so.
Great.
Sorry.
Good evening.
Good evening. How are you?
Eileen, you sound like you're stuck in the Matrix.
I am. Anthony's the one night I asked Robin to do it on a Wednesday, this meeting, and Anthony's all-star basketball game was planned on a Wednesday night. Of course, they're always Tuesday or Thursday. So I drove over during the executive session and my sister said he was in, and then I just ran up and he was out. And so, of course, this is how Murphy's Law applies to my life. Perfect example. So I apologize. That was me coming out of the Robinson school door. So I'm sorry I'm late. Hello, everybody. Thank you for attending. Is there a secretary for this meeting?
That's what I was just going to ask you.
Oh,
I am going to take the notes.
Okay.
And then I will work with Miss Sheehan when she returns to have the documentation done properly.
Okay. Could you take the roll call then? It's me, Miss Martin, and
Yeah.
Miss Thompson.
Yes.
I'm not Miss Martin. I'm sorry, Miss Chun.
Chun.
It
I
is,
apologize.
yep.
I'm here. I'm here. Yeah.
Thank you, Miss Chun. I'm sorry,
Oh.
Miss Martin did just text me that she's just going to feed her dogs. I think that's why that was on my head.
So I'm just gonna quickly formally do a roll call. So if Chairwoman Eileen DeRossi,
Yes. Here.
Committee Member Thompson,
Here.
Committee Member Chun,
Here.
3 present.
Thank you. I know the first item on the agenda was to talk about the update, and I'm not sure, I know we got a couple of these updated plans, but the update on the DESI new individual education plan implementation. But I also saw there was another, I know I was just looking at a presentation also, so I think there was something that was also sent out, maybe an updated agenda.
So if I may, Chairwoman DeRossi.
Yeah.
So
You can call-
tonight,
you can just call me Eileen.
we have 2 items on the agenda. And both items are relative to special education. The first item was the item you had requested regarding an update on the Department of Ed's, the rollout in whole of the Department of Ed's mandated new IEP system. And Dr. Vicente, our special education director, is here to present that. And then the second item, which will also be presented by Dr. Vicente, is the item where we wanted to review the facilities at the Laura Lee Therapeutic Pre-K to 8 school.
Sounds good. Go ahead.
So I'm going to introduce Dr. Vicente. Again, he is our Director of Special Education for Lowell Public Schools, and he is going to share the slide deck so everyone can see it.
Thank you, Ms. Desmond, members of the school committee. Appreciate your time this evening. I will go ahead and share my slide deck. Can everyone see that?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Wonderful. All right, so I'm just going to take a few minutes to go through some initial slides here. So just a prepared agenda. I'd like to start off with just some general updates on the department, just to give everyone some overview. I'm going to walk through the work that's been done on the IEP improvement project. And then, as Ms. Desmond noted, we'll talk a little bit about the Laura Lee Therapeutic Day School. Okay. So just generalized updates on where we're at as of today with special education. So up in the top left corner is our SIMS data, Student Information Management System. So enrollment from June of 21, we were at 2,627 special education students. June of last year, we finished the year at 2,713, and presently we are at 2,957 students. So we have had an increase in enrollment in special education post-pandemic. So some of the places where we've seen that, to the right are sub-separate programs. We've got 43 classrooms for CSA, 17 adjustment classrooms, 14 LEAP program classrooms, our 3 language-based classrooms. We have the enrollment to the right of that. So that's approximately 25% of our special education population. The remaining 75% of our students are in some form of inclusive programming, either partial or full inclusion programs. And our current IEP compliance rate for this month, we are sitting at 89.3%. So just some context for that, looking at the 5-year span prior to the pandemic, we average about 5% higher than we were at that time. In the 2021 school year, sort of in the middle of the pandemic, we had dropped about 17% from where we are now. We finished last school year right around 91%. Those are really fantastic numbers. I just want to take a moment to, just to recognize all the members of the special education department and the staff. That's their incredible work. They've done an excellent job of ensuring compliance with regards to all of our students, and I really appreciate their efforts. So I just wanted to thank them and acknowledge them to you members of the committee.
Mr. Vicente, if you can, I always try to have transparency. I know we're used to some of the acronyms, but
Sure.
for our listening audience, they may not be familiar with what they mean. So if you could just break them down, just like you did SIMS, you broke that down for us. If you could do it for the others, that'd be great.
Absolutely. Thank you for pointing that out. So CSA is our classrooms for students with autism. Our adjustment program is for students that primarily present with social emotional needs. The LEAP program is for students with intellectual impairment, and their focus is life skills. And then the language-based program is for students that present with a language-based learning disorder. So the substantially separate classrooms are programs within our public schools that support students that have demonstrated an increased need for support, and therefore they receive a portion, if not all of their programming in the sub-separate classroom.
Mr. Vincenti, if I may interrupt for 1 second, I just
Sure.
wanted to ask, I know that one language-based class is at the McAuliffe, feeds into the Robinson, and where is the third language-based class?
So we have 2 language-based classrooms at the Robinson School, and we have 1 at McAuliffe.
So there are 2 at the Robinson. So there are only 1 elementary level language-based class, and then there are 2 at the middle school level.
2 at the middle school level, correct.
Okay, thank you for clarifying.
Sure. Any other questions before I move forward?
All set, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Please feel free to direct me to go back if there's any questions that we need to return to. All right. So the next part of tonight is around the Massachusetts IEP Improvement Project. So as Ms. Desmond noted, this is a state mandate. This is happening throughout the Commonwealth. And so we first started unpacking the information a little over a year ago, knowing that this was coming down the pipe. We have been working with a consultant, Collaborative Educational Services. Our contact is Laurel Peltier. So she has helped us to sort of shape out our rollout, our professional development plan around this. And so that's a lot of what I'll be talking about tonight. So for starters, with this initial slide, I wanted to just sort of get to the background on the work that we've been doing with each one of our trainings. So we've been really focused on this premise of a responsive team. This is a model that was directly came to us from Collaborative Educational Services. It's been tied back to the districts that have been working on the IEP project, some of the early adopters. And so the premise behind it is that the model of responsive teams, they answer questions, they look at data, and then they look at the data and they use it to make data-informed decisions. The goal of the new IEP process is really about collaboration. We want to recognize that our teams are multidisciplinary, that we have a table full of experts. They're all knowledgeable about the educational needs of all of our students. And so under the guise of being a responsive team, we're working to be collaborative. We're taking the time to make sure that we recognize all of our stakeholders, and that means all members of the team, to include all of our educational experts, all of our outside collaterals, parents and families, and the students themselves. And we're making sure that we're taking the time to engage in shared responsibility, working towards providing that high quality educational experience for all of our students. So we're making this a priority for all of the work that we're doing, and making these things very present and very visible. And we've tied them directly into each component of the training that we've done thus far. Okay. So I wanted to share just some general background on the IEP Improvement Project by setting up a timeline. So just some general context, because I've been asked this question a couple of times through this process of what's the reason, what's the why for the change in the IEP? And I think the simplest way to answer that question is to note that the last time that there was any formalized changes to the document was 2001. And prior to that, it was 1999. So the system is it's definitely aged. A lot has happened during that time. And so Massachusetts has been giving some consideration to these changes for a while. We've seen them in other states. And so this is something that they really started to think seriously about back in 2014 by just reaching out to some initial stakeholder groups and gathering information. A year later, they started surveying the state. The Operational Services Division came in 2016 to start to formalize the data collection. Again, we wanted to make sure that there was some surveys that were going out that happened in 2018. ANLAR Research and Planning was hired by the state to make a report in 2018. And in 2019, the state started to formalize their process for reporting out on the new format. We started receiving guidance documents at the district level in 2020. We started seeing the first drafts of the IEP in 2021. This school year, there are 12 early adopter districts that have been using the new system and then reporting back out to the state to provide them with some feedback as they've continued to refine the process. And the goal for everyone in Massachusetts is to be prepared for a rollout in the fall of 2023. So that's been our target. All right. Oh, all right. So what we've done as a department, we've put quite a bit of thought into this because we wanted to make sure that we were being very thoughtful and considerate of all of the universal needs of our entire learning community, for our staff, for our students. We wanted to make sure that we created opportunities that served all of our needs. So we started off in the fall and early winter by just having some generalized information sessions at different schools. Our administration started visiting schools, doing some Q&A, just giving some generalized exposure to staff in preparation for development of a more comprehensive plan for professional development. So we created a PD calendar. We've made that available to the staff, and we've identified that as a living document that we're continuously updating. And then we targeted 3 very specific trainings that we started offering in February and through the beginning of March around completion of the actual document itself and really getting into the nuts and bolts of the changes of the new IEP. So what I have here tonight that I'm going to walk through with you folks is the slide deck from the 3 different trainings. I want to share some supporting documents that we've created along the way as we've learned ourselves, and we've had some discussion with our stakeholders and members of the district and the different folks that we worked with. And then along the way for each of our trainings, we also got some direct feedback from staff. We had them fill out surveys. And so we've put together some of that information to share with you as we think about what our next steps are. Okay. So looking at our first training session here. So each of our training sessions, we wanted to make sure that we had the introductory information up front. We put together this parking lot document because we knew that we were going to be touching a lot of people and that there was going to be a lot of questions. We wanted to make sure that we provided an area where staff could go and put their questions so that we would have an opportunity to review them later and progressively answer these questions. So we've been working as a staff to address the parking lot questions, to update them. And, we found that a lot of them are universal to the needs of the district. And so we're creating a bit of an FAQ document that will be widely available to everybody so that they can get their questions answered and continue to present questions that are applicable to everyone. Okay. So each of our trainings, we offer this information. We built out our agenda, made sure that we went through the different topics that we wanted to cover. We started by just establishing some expectations, some norms, just doing a generalized walkthrough of the IEP. And then we built in some different feedback forums and breakout groups to have a discussion. And then as we've gotten updated drafts of the new IEP, we've made them available to this training for staff to take a look at. One thing that I want to note before I go to my next slide is that I did get an email this afternoon. So DESE has been working to develop the final draft of the new IEP. It's been a living document. They've been taking the feedback that they've gotten from the early adopters, and making some adjustments along the way to the document. So I was told today through email that they will release the final draft of the IEP on Friday, March 24th. So we are anticipating that document soon, and we have a meeting coming up with the state so that we can go over the finality of the document and talk about the next steps at the state level. All right. So we set up our agenda, and one of the things that we were very deliberate about here is making sure that we pace this well. We know that it's a big shift. We knew that this was a large undertaking, and so we wanted to be thoughtful and make sure that we presented it in such a way that it was meaningful, that staff could follow along and, you know, feel good about the steps that we were taking. Okay. So we wanted to make sure that we established some training norms, again, thinking about the large group that we were going to be working with. We did these initial trainings through Zoom. We've done some follow-up meetings at the school level to make sure that our teams had an opportunity to work together with their immediate staff. But we wanted to make sure that we got as much information as we could out to folks and put a lot of thought into the way that we set this up. So quickly just reviewing the timeline that I've already shared with you folks. And then we started to getting into our founding principles, talking about, you know, the premise that the IEP is going to be student-centered. It's going to include stakeholder voice, and that we're going to engage in a lot of data-driven decision-making. One thing I will say about the new IEP format is that it has designed in such a way that stakeholder voice is very important. There are sections of the IEP that specifically have a lot of I statements to include parental involvement, to include student involvement, so that they are actively part of the process. Okay. So we wanted to make sure that that was important and well understood. So we did a generalized walkthrough the first time that we got everyone together in February. And we started just showing these different sections of the new IEP. And my team helped me to put together these short video vignettes that we put out. They're a couple of minutes each. And so we just talked about the different sections of the IEP and gave them some background information. Okay, so these are all live links that went into the training. And then we went through the different sections and we had these video vignettes. We talked about the student profile section, which includes special factors, present level of academic and functional performance, which I'll talk about those two things in 1 second. And again, we continued to pair them with these video vignettes so that we could watch them with staff and then sort of unpack them through some conversation. Okay. And then we also wanted to make sure that in the training that we provided some direct samples for them to be able to take a look at. And this particular section, known as the student profile, we spent a lot of time on this. What we realized is that in order to maximize the potential of the new document, we really needed to take a look at how we were structuring our meetings and where our priorities were. Okay. And so with the new IEP, for every student, we are going to go through, and this is part of the process at the state level, go through the special factors section for each student and the present level of academic achievement and functional performance, which was previously PLEP A and PLEP B. And we are deliberately making sure that our teams front load that at the beginning of an IEP meeting so that we are unpacking the salient information about the student as an individual, because that should inform the process. So we spent a lot of time thinking about how do we build this student profile, what's important, what's the data, where do we get it from, and ensuring that we think about this at the beginning of the meeting so that, again, everything that we do as we build a through line through the IEP, it's informed by what we learned about the student proactively. Okay. So we went through this section. We had some breakout groups to have some discussions about these different areas that we worked on. All right. We started getting into the goal pages and again, having some video vignettes related to that. We gave them a sample goal page. One of the things that I really wanted to prioritize in this process, and I feel really good about the work that my team did with this, is the formatting of the IEP process looks different, but the information itself is really similar to what we're doing. And so we wanted to make sure that we highlighted that and we walked through this with staff so that they had a full understanding of the work and how things fit into these different sections and boxes. So we wanted to pair this up with a lot of the hows, with some of these short videos, and then to be able to share out some samples. So we went through service delivery. One section that's going to be very new to the IEP process that I'm particularly excited about is the section called interagency responsibility and linkages. So that is specifically going to identify who are the outside collaterals that work with every student. We want to make sure that we build into the document exactly who are all the supports. So if they have agencies that are working with them, that are working with the families, we want to make sure that we are being as deliberate as we can, to the extent that it's always appropriate, of course, to make sure that we know who the team is, who are all the stakeholders, and we're very thoughtful about everyone's level of involvement on behalf of the student, okay? So again, we had some more breakout rooms. And then we spent some time here. So I mentioned earlier that we really thoughtful about making sure that we maximize the potential of the document. And in order to do that, we have developed a new agenda that we've shared out with everyone about what we think an IEP meeting needs to look like. And there's a few things that we wanted to make sure we did. Number one, we're going to want to make sure that we communicate to everybody what the changes in the meeting format is going to look like, because it's going to be a new process, okay? The other thing is that we're very focused on identifying student strengths and student needs, all right? And that lives very much through the document and through all of our processes. We continuously circle back to, as we're unpacking information, what are the identified strengths? What are the identified needs? How do they fit into the student profile? And how does that ultimately shape the document so that we can provide the best outcomes for our students, okay? And then the last thing that we did at this first training is we had our staff get together and put together a mock meeting. And we wanted all the members who were there for the training to be able to see a meeting in action, to see the new meeting agenda happen, to go through the process and hear what exactly it looked like. And I found this myself to be particularly powerful in the feedback, because, you know, some of the staff members who were looking at the new documents and the new process and had a lot of questions and weren't sure, when they saw it in action, you know, they expressed to us, they're like, okay, that helped me to sort of breathe a little bit easier and understand that, you know, there is a lot of similarities to what we've already done. And, you know, we are very well equipped for this work. And while we're going to go through a change, you know, this is something that we can all work together on. And, you know, it's going to take us to some really strong places. So we felt really good about that work. Let me just jump back to my presentation here. So we went through, these trainings were 2 hours long. We made them available to our staff. We did these 3 initial trainings, and I will walk through some of the other sessions here to give everyone a sense about the work that we've done. But we wanted to get these initial district-wide trainings, get the information out, and continuously get a loop of feedback from staff about what the next steps should look like, okay? And we stress that these are just the beginning of our formalized training. We've already reached out to some other schools that have different start and end times to some of our, you know, some of our late schools, for example, to find out if staff were not able to attend these trainings, what are some different times that we can offer them. We've had some follow-up with our ETCs and with our administrators at the building level to go and work with teams. We've got some principals that have asked us to come to CPT times and some different opportunities during the school day to be able to work with their staff. And that will be an ongoing process, in addition to getting the information from the state as they start to roll out their statewide trainings, because we want to just make sure that we're have this continuous loop of support and provide every training session that we possibly can to our students, or excuse me, to our staff. So session 2 was similar to, the formatting was the same for all of them, but in session 2, we started to get a little bit further into the processes. Again, we wanted to get to our founding principles. We spent a lot of time in session 2 on student profile. So not only did we go and review some of the work that we've done, but we created some opportunities for staff to actually engage in some activities where they completed some of these forms themselves in small groups and had some discussion. And we focused a lot about how to complete the document, and where they would find the information. So we provided them with some mock student profiles, similar information that they would have available in an IEP meeting, and allowed them to unpack that and work as teams on how they would complete this process. All right. And so that was, some of these breakout groups, the work that we did with them there. We made sure that we had some reporting out so that we could hear from everyone. All right. We did the same sort of work with the goal pages. We started to really break down in session 2 some specifics around strong goal writing. We wanted to make sure that we connected some of these areas to the work that they already do. So we, even though the physical format of the document is different, we talked about how does this currently tie to the IEPs that we know and that we've worked with for a long time. And then again, we just engaged in the process of looking at examples and, having people have an opportunity to practice and unpack some of these documents. All right. We talked a lot about data, and we talked a lot about what do we need to do to support our staff in getting access to data and readily available data. We know that this is IEP writing is a big process. It's an important process. There's a lot of work that goes through it. So we wanted to take the time to work with our staff to be really thoughtful about where our data sources are and how do they apply to the documents. We spent a lot of time with this, and this will be an area of continued training for us as we continue to work through our documents. All right. We did an activity that we called Where's the Data? And we just talked about different forms of data and where do we find it and how does it fit into the different sections of the IEP. And we did some more training out. And then we connected it back to one of the staples this year of special education as a district, which is the high leverage practices. So there are 22 research-based high leverage practices that come from the Council of Exceptional Students. And what they are is they're foundational teaching practices that open the door to evidence-based and research-based practices, and ultimately good, strong tiered interventions and just good sound instruction. So we've been working a lot with our teams to understand what the framework is of the HLPs. This is work that they have all seen and done for a long time, but it's great to have it now in a formalized framework and have it as a point of reference and have it as a lively discussion as we continue to, unpack all of this work. All right. So each of our trainings sort of built off the previous trainings and led us to where we were going to go to next. All right. Session 3 was largely around goal writing. Again, similar format, but we spent a lot of time here really getting directly into our goal writing, some of the areas that we want to build on, some of the things that we want to be thinking about, some review, and then spent 3 different breakout sessions working on an ELA goal, a math goal, and an academic engagement goal. And we had teams, common teams work together. So schools got to work together with the teams that they are used to working with at the table to really unpack this information and practice and be able to engage in some dialogue, both together as a team and then across the district to talk about what this process was like for them. And this was great because the first goal was, it was a new experience for them. There was a lot of questions, but by the time we got around to our second group and then ultimately into our third group, we were really finding a lot of traction. And it also helped us to think about how to shape our questions as we work to move forward in this process. All right. So I mentioned some supporting documents. So along the way, we wanted to make sure that we made things available to our staff. So we provided them with some agenda, an agenda item. We have a breakdown of agendas. This will be available to all of our staff. We have one for review meetings. We have one for evaluation meetings. And this is really structured so that we can be thoughtful about how we're going to not only run a new IEP meeting, but how we're going to communicate it out to everyone at the table as everybody gets used to this new format and we're working together. Okay. So we have that component that we worked on. We looked at, I mentioned strengths and needs. So we spent a lot of time and we prepared some documents that will help the teams to unpack this information. And we already have teams that are using this now and finding a lot of value in these tools to really think about what are the strengths, what are the needs, and where do we get that information. And so these are documents that we're sharing out with the team so that they can be, starting to put it into action now and will be available next year as well. And then we've just given them some of the samples that we worked with that will be directly tied to the document itself as we continue to work and unpack this. All right. This is another thing that we've done. So I talked about readily available data. So I've been working with different members of the curriculum office and different staff members around the city to be really thoughtful about the data that's available. And so we are starting to prepare some of these documents that get into our assessment schedule, that get into the different types of assessments and data sources that we have and where people can find them and what are their focal points so that we can use them and be very thoughtful as we're thinking about our best course of action to be able to inform the process for IEPs. All right. So these are all tools that we're working to make available to all of our staff members in the process. Okay. And then we had our training feedback. So we put together some surveys and I've taken some screenshots of the surveys. We wanted to ask the questions, was the training practical for your work? And then after the participation, how did you feel in terms of your preparation for this change? So we had 152 participants at our first training. We have about 229 special education teachers. So we had a pretty good turnout. And we got some pretty strong responses in terms of the practicality and the work that was being done. I felt really good about the pace that we kept. And there was a lot for us to learn in addition to the staff to learn along the way. I took some screenshots of some survey responses. People were asking for examples. We got some positive feedback. We got some questions and some suggestions, which was great. And then I also listed what was the most common request afterwards. And it was, for the first one, was working on the goal writing and just some generalized practice. All right. So in our second session, we had about 150 participants. Again, our responses on the practicality of the training, how people felt as far as their understanding of the document and the work that we were doing, some samples of responses to the surveys, and then, we were starting to unpack more around data collection at that point. So people were asking more about data collection questions, and then again, continued work on goal writing. Then we had our most recent training. So again, what we had as far as responses to the practicality of the training, where people feel they're at right now as far as preparation, some survey responses, and then what people were asking for. Again, goal writing, again, practice. And there was a lot of discussion around how can we work collaboratively with the general education teachers, which I think it was fantastic, having the opportunity to talk about stakeholders and all the different participants. So I was really happy that we were thinking in terms of everybody that was at the table. All right. So from this information, we've been thinking about what our next steps are going to be. So we're working on scheduling out some more trainings to first address the schools that had times that staff weren't as available to these initial district-wide trainings. That's one of our first steps. The other thing is that we've been unpacking the feedback forms and being really thoughtful about where we're at and where folks feel like they need some help. Our ETCs have been great to get together with their teams. They've been making time during the school day. They've been going to CPTs. A lot of them have been able to work both in small groups and then even individually with their staff. And then my two assistant directors, Alexis Florence and Aaron Upton, have been very actively involved in the schools and just continuing to pursue this work. And I think that so far it's been very well received. So as far as next steps, we now have a date for the document release this week. So I'm looking forward to that. We'll also be getting information soon on the statewide trainings that will be offered. We're going to continue our approach to district PD. We're just going to continue to build out on PD for everyone right through the spring into the summer and make sure that, we want staff to feel good about where they're at in the process. We also want to continue to get feedback from everyone here in the district and from DESE about a progressive rollout that makes sense. And then the other thing that we're working on right now is setting up 3 spring community forums. So I've reached out to the SPED PAC, talked to some different members of the community. I want to make sure that we offer up some community forums so that parents can come and ask questions, so that different stakeholders and some of our collaterals know that there's a new process is happening, and that they can ask their questions, and that we can just continue to involve everyone to support an appropriate rollout. So I threw a lot at you. I'll pause if you guys can just let me know if you have any questions or any thoughts.
Thank you, Mr. Vincente. You definitely threw a lot at us, but thank you so much for all of your hard work that you've put into this. I think my first question has to do the forms. I think your forms that you used for the training to teach the new staff about this program are essential. And I'm wondering if something that you could do is integrate those forms into the meeting summary going forward, or the meeting notes that are required for the folder to include for the teachers in their packet going forward, because I think that is essential, and it kind of includes everything, so they can just kind of have it on their computer going along with the meeting and just add to it and just copy paste when they're going to build the IEP. I think that would be a vital tool and very helpful for all special ed teachers in IEP meeting and annual reviews.
Yeah, thank you. That's very much aligned with the work that we're doing. So one of the things that we've done we've gotten some direct guidance from DESE and from our consultant is we looked at all of our documents, and we have documentation that is, obviously we have documentation that's required, but some of our documents are required in its current format. And some documents, districts have a little bit of autonomy on making some modifications to the document. So right now what we're doing is looking at some revisions and getting some guidance from our consultant about anything that we can change. And in that process, we're being thoughtful about exactly what you described, Ms. Del Rossi, which is what can we put into the folder? What can we, put directly into the process that's going to help our teachers?
Right. Yeah, I think that would be great. The second part of that question is, has this training trickled down into the new teacher mentor program for special education teachers? Because I think this is a vital thing to start integrating into starting to teach them, or teaching mentors to start to teach them.
Yeah, so what we've done with these initial district-wide trainings is we've made them available to everyone. So I have been really deliberate at the buildings, and I said, anybody who wants to learn about the new IEP process, please come to the training. We've had special education teachers, we've had general education teachers, we've had a lot of different folks, we've had administration, anybody who wants to get their hands in the process. And then we're continuing to do outreach with the LTA, with all of our different providers. We've invested a lot of time through our consultants with working directly with our ETCs and our evaluation teams, and then working to get them into the building so that they can work directly with the teams that they work with day to day at the table and unpack this document. And so that build out will definitely continue, and we're going to continue to work on our partnership with the LTA.
Okay, thank you. And I think my last question is just kind of in terms of just language-based classrooms throughout the district, and just kind of seeing if there's any urgency to build out language-based classrooms throughout the district for even going forward with kids that are that need that type of programming overall, where there's only one very small section of the city that has that type of program.
Yeah, no, thank you. I think that's a really great point. So, we're constantly looking at our needs across the city and being very thoughtful about our programming. I think it's really important to be really deliberate with our professional development and be thoughtful about how do we address, all of our learners. And so, the students that are in the language-based program, I feel really good about the work that's been doing there, that we've been doing there, and the time that we've been investing with the staff. I actually have a couple of different committees that have been working on, giving me some updates on that programming and some next steps with professional development. And so as those conversations continue, we'll look at language base in addition to all of our programs so that we can continue to make informed decisions for the district.
Thank you.
You bet.
I also have a question, Dr. Vicente. Is it doctor?
Yeah.
Okay, I thought so.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. You can call me Frank,
sorry for
though.
calling you Mr. Vicente, Dr.
No,
Vicente.
Frank is fine.
No, you earned it, so I'm going to call you by your title.
Thank you.
So just a quick question, and this goes back to language as well. Curious for, the vignettes. I'm a very visual learner myself, and so I appreciated the usage of that. Curious as if there was a thought of potentially using those in a language space, to potentially inform the parents. I feel like that's potentially a better way for many parents, because it's conversational as opposed to like a document that they have to read through.
Yeah.
That somebody might be explaining them, the information, but I feel like there's a great way to, get people that are, because obviously there's a gazillion different languages spoken in Lowell, so that could be
Sure.
complicated. But at least, starting off with the languages that we have the most students in that would be impacted. As soon as I saw that, that's kind of like something that for me just stood out as an opportunity, because with the changeover, I'm sure some parents that have been using the system are freaking out a little bit and trying to figure out, oh my gosh, how's this going to impact my child? And, having to learn something even for them, again, sometimes we don't want to learn. We get to an age where we're done learning, right? So now they have to learn a different system. So I was just curious about that thought.
Yeah, no, thank you. And that's wonderful feedback. So I will tell you, I'm going to use a separate example, our SPED Pack meetings. So in the work that we've done with SPED Pack this year, our SPED Pack has been great about being very mindful of that very need. All right. And they've been very vocal about that in a positive way. And so they have been very consistent in reminding us to make sure that we offer closed captioning, for example, in multiple languages at our meetings. All right. And we definitely have a broader base of representation at our meetings now. It is still very much in its infancy. There's a lot of work to do, but I would like to take that model and be very thoughtful thinking about these community forums. What I envision is being able to offer a community forum where I can go to a location and we can offer it in person, but also have, use our technology so that folks can zoom in or they can be present. And then we can use our closed caption and we can be thoughtful about how to get the information out to people. We do have 2 parent liaisons now. One of our parent liaisons speaks 3 languages. So she's been very helpful in that process. She comes to our SPED Pack meetings, and we're just continuously working with our partners to be very thoughtful with the long-term goal of being able to address all of our language needs in the city.
Yeah, I think that's great. I was almost thinking about what you're talking about almost as an additional thing to what I was talking about. So obviously I think it's great when we're having in-person experiences with our parents, because again, it doesn't make them feel like we're pushing them off to the side, like we'll get to you later, right? So I love that. But I also think that wouldn't it be fantastic if we're empowering them to say, okay, here's Dr. Vicente speaking to them in the language that they understood later. So like they saw the one in person, now they're able to still fill out the forms or, go over additional information, and it makes them feel a little bit more empowered. Now I get that there's a lot that goes into that, but it's just a thought that I was thinking about because again, I am a very visual learner. So thank you. I appreciate just even the consideration of that.
Yeah, no, thank you for the feedback. And, we will continue to work on refining that with the Equity Office and all of our partners. So thank you.
And then my last question was, as you were talking through the, and I was kind of on the vignettes again, but it just made me think about the language learners. Was there a special, and I love the word you use, intentionality, because I'm about that too. Was there specific intentionality of kind of going over that information based on like the specific groups that you separated, like the CSA class, the LEAP class? Was there specific ways that you went over all the different sections of the classes that you went through? Was there kind of breakouts for those specific sections so they kind of knew how they might navigate these changes as a group?
So there were breakouts by schools and teams.
Okay.
We haven't necessarily gotten to the place yet where we've looked at it by category of disability and some
Okay.
of those specialized populations, but that is definitely in our notes, that work that we're going to continue to do. And so examples like that is the reason why we know that this training needs to be ongoing and continuous. And we need to make sure that we provide an abundance of opportunities for everyone that's going to be involved.
Thank you, Dr. Vicente.
You bet.
Does anyone else have any more questions?
I do. And with the training, when you say everyone include, is that including someone who will be a one-on-one para or someone who's when you're saying someone, is that in terms of everyone that involves in the students' education and teaching staff or support staff as well?
Absolutely, absolutely. So for these trainings, and we've been asked the question several times, and we've been, you know, we wanted to make sure we were consistent with the answer. So when we've offered training, we've afforded it to everyone. And I've had paraprofessionals that have reached out and said, "Can I go to the training?" Absolutely. I've had general ed teachers that said, "Can I come to the training?" Absolutely. I had staff from the FRC that said, "Can I go to the training? I'd like to learn more about IEP writing." Absolutely. We want to make sure that, you know, we offer this to everybody. I feel like the more people that get involved in the process, the better off we are. And it's just great learning for everyone.
Thank you very much.
You bet.
Dr. Vincenti, so if Mrs. Chun wanted to come to your meeting, could she?
Absolutely.
I would love to.
You're welcome.
And would the time be accommodating towards our parents or our staff that, you know, especially I would love to one time to just sit in and listen in on these training and just, just absorb and see what it is that as a body, how can we help accommodate or help support you as well?
Thank you. So were there any other questions or thoughts?
Okay.
All right. Thank you very
And
much.
thank you for all the hard work that you put into this. And I know there is one more item on the agenda to discuss.
Yep.
If you would like to begin that discussion about the Laura Lee.
Absolutely.
So
So
I'll
we're
just quickly introduce this as well. This is just an update on the facilities at the Laura Lee. As many of you may know, this is a very old facility that we have been utilizing for quite some time now as a K-8 therapeutic day school. Many of the students within the school are older. We don't have a significant population of younger students. And Dr. Vicente is just going to quickly go over the status of the building and an update on the facilities report.
Thank you. So first of all, I'd like to say for anybody that isn't aware, I was previously the building coordinator of the Laura Lee Therapeutic Day School. So this is a school that definitely has a special place in my heart. So the Laura Lee currently has an enrollment of 18 students. We have a licensure capacity of 38. I wanted to just provide some basic information on their operational budget and what we're currently spending for transportation. We wanted to be very thoughtful about making sure that we're getting the information around the Laura Lee because it is an older building. And, we always want to be thinking about our equity lens and what's important for folks to know about, the education for all of our students. So these documents that I'm going to share, I got from Rick Underwood. And so the first one is the last Be Safe report that came out. So I asked him for just the most recent report. And so this just goes over some generalized information about the building. Who all our different contacts. It gets into some of the information on operations of the building in addition to the building footprint. This is the location, obviously, in the city. It gives us some generalized information on this, as I said, the footprint, and then some photographs of the building with some generalized information. what I wanted to focus on for this presentation is largely on the facilities memo. So I asked Mr. Underwood to prepare a memo, and I think the easiest thing for me to do is I'll just go ahead and read it out, because it really highlights the information that we felt like was, you know, in all full transparency, we want to make sure that people are aware of. So the Laura Lee was built in 1900, with its most recent renovation occurring in 1983. The renovation provided new heating system, windows, and roof. However, these renovations are well past their useful life cycle. The building's foundation is made up of granite, stone, and mortar, as is common for that time period. Water infiltration through the basement wall is common at the school, as it is a wet, damp basement. The school lacks proper insulation and is costly to heat during the winter months. The school does have a handicap ramp. However, the ramp only provides access to the first floor of the building. There's currently no access to either the basement or the second floor for students or staff with mobility difficulties. Also, there are currently no ADA compliant restrooms on any floor of the building. The building is not equipped with proper ventilation systems other than the large windows it was built with. In the early 1900s, ventilation was not a top priority in buildings, thus most buildings were designed without proper exhaust systems. As times have changed, this is now a big concern for schools and municipalities. The school lacks adequate space for activities, both inside and outside. Unlike other schools in the district that have either a gym or cafetorium and adequate outdoor play space. There are difficulties for transportation to and from the school due to the building's location being on the corner of a very busy intersection at Plain and Chelmsford Street. It can be quite problematic to safely pick up and drop off students due to the lack of sufficient space to safely pull over and stay out of the way of traffic. There are other issues with the building, such as location, trash pickup, snow removal, supply deliveries. Could go on with reasons for this building is no longer meeting the school department's needs. What I've heard from Mr. Underwood in talking to him is that, you know, there's a sense about the Department of Public Works having some concerns about this building and its long-term upkeep. And just some of the concerns that had been presented is, you know, we felt like it was important to be transparent about that information with this committee, and you know, just make sure that everybody is aware of this as we're being thoughtful about generalized needs of our students. Ms. Desmond, I don't know if you have anything additional that you wanted to add.
Yeah, I think the item that we really wanted to address outside of the overall report, and some of this has come to the forefront after the more recent issues with the really cold weather and how it affected the building. We would like to ask the committee members if there would be support for us moving forward in perhaps looking at what other options might be considered for the students who are in this program.
Has there been any type of estimate as to how much the work will cost to take place first for the building? I guess is the question, as compared to how much it will be to lease or to buy another place. So we have some comparison prices.
So I think that's what we're wondering, is if the committee would like us to move forward in doing some of that research for consideration moving forward.
I mean, I'll open this up to
if you would,
colleagues.
Yeah, if you would, I would make a motion to bring this before the whole body to discuss what our options are to regarding the Laura Lee Therapeutic Day School.
I'll second that.
I agree. I think this is just really big, and I that's just, we need to be whole-minded about this. So
Ms. Del Rossi, if I could, I just had one more comment.
Can I interrupt for 1 second? I'm sorry, but I'm the note taker as well.
Yep.
Do you mind just restating the motion? Yes,
Absolutely.
I just want to
Yep.
capture it correctly.
A motion for the subcommittee to bring to the full body. So the motion is to look at our options regarding the Laura Lee Therapeutic Day School. Yeah.
Options to repair or to.
Repair or look elsewhere. So my other question was about the, well, it wasn't a question as much as it was a question about the report, I guess, as much as it was a statement. So I was curious as to, and this isn't something that you guys may know, but I know this is from Mr. Underwood. He sent this to you all. I noticed that the superintendent's name was obviously incorrect on it, which I'm sure you might have noticed as well. So I'm just curious how up to date the pictures and all that information was, because it had Kalfawi's name on there still. So I'm just curious as to what how up to date this information was. So if you could in that also have a new report sent to the full committee, that would be great. An up to date report of pictures of any issues within the school, that would be also great.
Yeah, we can definitely follow up with Mr. Underwood and the appropriate parties on that.
Thank you.
I-
I'm sorry, Ms. Del Rossi, did you say something I couldn't hear?
No, sorry,
Okay.
that was Anthony, sorry.
Okay.
Yes.
Not sure if I have to make that in the form of a motion or if that's just an update.
And yes, a motion for an updated repair report with overall updated repair report with the proper superintendent. A motion for that as well. So that we have the accurate data.
Second.
Thank you.
Ms. Del Rossi, Ms. Doherty has her hand up.
Oh, Ms. Doherty, go ahead.
Thank you. I was just wondering if we could include in that update some information about the students who actually attend the Therapeutic Day School. I think, the whole plan with many of these alternative programs is to keep as many of our students in district as possible. So if we had some information about the students who are currently attending, what the expectation is that capacity might change, may increase or not increase. I think that would be helpful as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, and especially what their needs are in terms of what they need to. So do we have to put that in terms of a motion as well? Like what the population of the students at the Laura Lee are currently, so that we know the type of students that we are looking to have this building for, or to service to support, to service this building to support for. So if I could make a motion also to ask for a report for the a report to talk to the needs of the types of services that the students at the Laura Lee currently need to help them to succeed and to support them most. Do you have that, Ms. Disman? My son right now needs me to put my credit card into his PlayStation machine.
So my understanding is I have two reports, Chairperson Del Rossi. One is to request an updated repair report to bring to the whole committee with the most accurate data on the facilities. And then I have a motion for a document that would provide accurate information about student needs currently, so that we're sure we're servicing and supporting the students within the program.
Yes, I think that's, yes.
I do need a second on the motion you just made, which was
Second.
for a report on the student needs and the servicing needs of the students.
Second.
Second, thank you.
Miss Martin has her hand up. Miss Del Rossi,
Oh, go ahead, Miss Martin.
you're muted.
Oh,
There you go,
Miss
that
Martin.
explains it.
Go.
No worries, I'm sorry. I just wanted to add, if we could, I think if we're gonna be kind of considering, you know, a new physical plant, a new building, things like that, I think one of the big potentialities we want to be able to have a handle on is, I mean, if we're servicing, you know, less than 20 students right now in this program, what is the potential? Like, how many students in the district could potentially benefit from this program that may be currently being outsourced, or, you know, or is there a complementary program that could be part, if we had a bigger facility, that we might be able to make the most of this kind of a, you know, shift, so that, you know, we're not just trying to recreate what we have, but take advantage maybe of an opportunity to build this into something that could, you know, have even greater benefits than what, you know, the Riverside has already been able to achieve for us. That's just a recommendation. It doesn't need to be a motion.
Just as a quick question, how much do we have to involve, or should we be thoughtful about involving our colleagues on the city side, considering they are the holders of the buildings? So I'm just curious as to what my colleagues think about that.
Well, I think we need to, nope, sorry.
I'm sorry, Miss Martin. My thought was just that at this point, we're bringing all of this back to the whole school committee anyway, in terms of an updated repair report and what the needs of the building are. So I think we need to start there anyway before we go anywhere else. And then we can start brainstorming in terms of that. So that was original, that is my thought in terms of that. But go ahead, Miss Martin. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
I think that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, I think I just don't want to jump a gun on anything as of yet. Because this is potentially could be big, but we just want to get as much information as possible before going ahead, I think. And just have as much data as possible. So we can be as informed as possible going forward. So I guess, does anyone else have any more questions, comments, concerns?
So if I just may take just a moment, first of all, I want to thank everybody for their time tonight. But I also, given that we're talking about the Laura Lee, I just want to acknowledge the incredible work that happens in that program. Miss Peters and her staff do a wonderful job for the students that they have, and I just want to celebrate them, because it really is a great little program. And I'm happy to have any discussion that's going to continue to benefit all of our kids.
Yes, I can attest to that. I think we shared a friend that had that program that did definitely help that student out a great deal, and has helped a lot of kids in many ways. And the staff there definitely puts some serious blood, sweat, and tears into everything that they do, and it is an incredible place.
Thank you.
Yes, and thank you for all the work that you put into tonight, and to Miss Desmond, and thank you guys all for hanging in there for 2.5+ hours. Everyone who's been there since 5:30. So we'll take this whole this meeting as a report of progress. And motion to adjourn, anybody?
Motion.
Thank you, Ms. Thompson. Seconded by Ms. Chun. And you can say goodnight.
Good
night,
night, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.
All right, let's go. Expiration.